20 days ago, I buried my father, and the pain still feels unreal. But today, while sitting alone and remembering the stories he used to tell me, one memory kept replaying in my mind. It was the story about the night when my 19-year-old dad went after a man everyone in our village was terrified of. A man who abused women, a man who thought no one would ever challenge him. And the night my father proved him wrong, forever. Before we jump into this story, if you enjoy powerful Reddit revenge stories about justice and karma, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around, because this one might be one of the most intense revenge stories you'll hear today. Now let me tell you about the night my dad faced a monster. I lost my dad 20 days ago. Even saying that out loud feels strange. Like the words don't belong to my life yet. The house feels quieter now. Too quiet. My dad was the kind of person who could fill a room with stories. He had this incredible way of telling them. Dramatic pauses, mischievous smiles, the way his eyes lit up when he reached the best part, and honestly, he had a lot of stories. But there's one he told more than any other, his favorite. The story of the night he protected his sister. My dad was the youngest of 9 siblings, 6 brothers, 2 sisters. And if you've ever seen how big families treat the youngest, you know exactly how it was. He was spoiled, pampered, protected, but he was also known for something else. A temper. Not the kind that made him cruel, but the kind that made him fearless when something felt wrong. And apparently, I inherited that same temper. When my dad was just 19 years old, his second oldest sister, let's call her C, had recently gotten married. Her husband was in the military, stationed near the border most of the time, which meant something very common in many parts of India. She lived with her husband's family, and that's where the problem started, because inside that house, there was a man everyone feared. Her brother-in-law, let's call him A, but honestly, my dad always called him something much worse. A was a local thug, an extortionist, a bully who walked through the village like he owned it. He was huge, about 6 feet 8 inches tall, broad shoulders, thick arms, the kind of man people crossed the street to avoid. He drank constantly, picked fights for fun, and worst of all, women weren't safe around him. People whispered things about him, terrible things, but nobody ever did anything because everyone was scared. Then my Aunt C married into that family. Anna noticed her. At first it was comments, small things, too close, too long staring. Then the harassment started, and eventually, it became much worse. My aunt was forced into silence. Her husband was miles away at the border. Her in-laws did nothing. And every day, she was trapped in that house with a predator. Weeks passed, and slowly, the fight inside her started to disappear, until one day she finally broke down and told someone, her nephew, an 18-year-old boy who visited the house. She told him everything, how A was harassing her, how he forced himself into her space, how she felt like she was losing her mind. The boy listened. And when he left that house, he ran straight to my dad. My dad told me he could still remember the moment. The nephew burst into the room, crying, shaking, and the words came out all at once. C is in danger. A is hurting her. Nobody is helping her. My dad said something snapped inside him. His chest tightened, his fists clenched, and for a moment, he couldn't even speak, because the image in his mind was unbearable. His sister, terrified, alone, and a monster living under the same roof. But my dad also knew something else. He was only 19, and A was practically a giant. Taking him on alone would be suicide, so he did the only thing he could think of. He called his friends and his older nephews, 6 young men in total, all angry, all reckless, and none of them thinking very clearly. Because sometimes, when you're young and furious, you don't need a perfect plan. You just need courage. Their plan, if you could even call it that, was simple. They would beat the hell out of A, not kill him. Just send a message so loud. He would never touch my aunt again. But there was a problem. A sober A was practically unbeatable. So they waited. Because every evening, A got drunk, very drunk. And that night, my dad and his friends did something else. They drank too. Not because they wanted to, but because sometimes alcohol gives young men something they desperately need. Liquid courage. The village roads were dark. Electricity was unreliable back then. So the night streets looked like shadows stretching across empty dirt paths. And that's where they waited. 6 nervous teenagers hiding in the darkness, listening, watching, hearts pounding. Then they saw him. A was walking down the road, drunk, laughing loudly. And my dad whispered one word, "Now." They jumped him. At first it worked. 6 men attacking from every direction, punches flying, shouts echoing through the night. But A was still a monster. Even drunk, he fought like an animal, swinging wildly, knocking one of them down, grabbing another by the collar. Then things got worse, because A wasn't alone. A few of his goons appeared from behind him, and suddenly, it wasn't 6 against 1 anymore. It was chaos. Bodies crashing into each other, dirt flying, someone yelling, someone bleeding. The kind of fight where nobody is thinking anymore, just survival. And in the middle of that madness, my dad saw something on the ground, a piece of wood. Without thinking, he grabbed it. And when it turned toward him, my dad swung. Hard. The wood cracked against A's head with a sickening sound, and everything froze for half a second. Then someone screamed, "Run!" So they ran. All 6 of them scattered into the darkness. No plan, no coordination. Just adrenaline and fear pushing them forward. My dad somehow made it home. His clothes were covered in dirt. His knuckles were bruised. But he took a shower, crawled into bed, and passed out instantly. The next morning, he told my grandmother, "Mom, we got into a fight." And before he could even finish the story, his brother burst into the house. "The police are looking for you." Apparently, A had survived long enough to reach the hospital. And he gave a statement. My grandmother looked at my dad calmly and said, "You should disappear for a few days." So my dad went on the run. But according to him, that didn't last very long because the food was terrible. And after a while, he said he got tired of hiding. So he did something incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. He walked into the police station and surrendered. But here's the part that always made my dad laugh when he told the story. The first thing he said to the police was apparently, "Before we talk, can I get a decent meal?" He said the food while hiding was so bad. Jail food sounded better. Eventually, the case went to court. But things got complicated. Witnesses changed their statements, evidence became unclear, and eventually, the case was dismissed. A survived the attack, at least for a little while. But the injury my dad gave him never truly healed. Months later, A died. And something strange happened in the village. Something my dad always pointed out. From that day forward, not a single woman reported being harassed by him, because the man everyone feared was finally gone. My dad never bragged about that night, but he also never apologized for it. Whenever someone asked if he regretted what happened, he always gave the same answer. No. Then he'd lean back in his chair and say one sentence. After that night, no woman in our village had to live in fear of him again. And every time he said that, you could see the pride in his eyes. Not pride for hurting someone, but pride for protecting someone who couldn't protect herself. Now that he's gone, I realized something. My dad wasn't perfect. He had a temper. He made reckless choices. But when it mattered most, he stood up for someone who needed help. And sometimes, that's what real courage looks like. Messy, dangerous, but unforgettable. If this story gave you chills, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful Reddit revenge stories just like this one. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever witnessed? Because sometimes, karma doesn't come quietly. Sometimes, it comes swinging.